And away we go. It is the BCJ Podcast, brought to you by the Holy Grail, right here on BearcatJournal.com. Make sure you get down and see our good friends at the Holy Grail anytime you're in and around the downtown area, maybe checking out a Reds game. They will get you taken care of. Great food, awesome service, and, of course, all the ice-cold beverages you could ever ask for, including Cincy Light. And remember, 50 cents from every Cincy Light purchased at the Holy Grail will be donated back into the Cincy Reigns NIL Collective. So go to the Holy Grail, have yourself some Cincy Light, help out the athletes, help out the university, and have a great time while you're at it. All right, let's get this show on the road. Special guest tonight. It is almost time, ladies and gentlemen. It's almost time to unveil the Bearcats' new palace, the Taj Mahal of Clifton, if you will. And we thought it would be a great time to have John Daniel on, as he has kind of been the overseer of that project. So we will talk to John in a second. Dave, how are you? I'm surprised you're not coming to us live from Knoxville tonight.
Not tonight. Maybe another time, but just didn't work out. Got some travel next week, so figured I need to stay home this weekend.
Well, it's good to have you. We got plenty to talk about. Let's get to John Daniel. John, how the heck are you?
I'm doing great.
You're a little choppy there for a second.
Oh, okay. Am I back?
You're back. You're back.
You got me? Okay. Yeah, I'm doing great. How are you guys?
We're good. Let's get right to it. How excited are you? This has kind of been your baby over the last 18 months, 2 years. How excited are you that we are almost at the finish line?
Yeah, it's been my baby for sure. You know, I came to UC just over 3 years ago, knowing that we were going to do a indoor practice facility and a performance center, and knowing where physically it was going to be located, but not knowing much more than that. And to have it go through all the design and concepts and planning all the way to construction, and now, you know, we're all the way now done, where tomorrow is actually the final day of actual construction, the substantial completion deadline, as they say in the construction world. And we'll start kind of our slow move in on Monday, and then have our ribbon cutting ceremony the following week on June 11th. And we just cannot wait. It is unbelievable. We just had a tour group there through today, and they are putting the finishing touches on everywhere, scrambling to do a deep clean. And but yeah, we are just so fired up to show this place off and get our team in there.
That was good. That was going to be my first question: is what is left? What is still being done at this point to get things to final completion?
Yeah, so furniture has all been delivered. They are doing a little bit of patch and paint work. Almost all the graphics, you know, that are really kind of the environmental design and showcasing the bowl games and the All-Americans and all those things. Those are probably 90% done. There's a few little touch-ups here and there. The cleaning is like top of mind, because, you know, it's just been an active construction site where they're tracking in, you know, dust and dirt everywhere. So they're going through each room, and they have a bulletin up on there of saying, okay, the first clean was done 2 weeks ago, the second clean was done this week, and then the final clean will get done next week. So it's show ready. And then we're still coordinating some deliveries. There's some appliances, you know, the Gatorade refrigerators that'll go into the fuel station, a couple of pieces like that are kind of like, you know, unpack and plug in. Those are coming in over the next week. But for the most part, I mean, the building itself is done, and you know, the construction fencing came down this week around Jefferson Avenue and Corey Boulevard, and they've laid down sod, and they're fixing the sidewalk. They're fixing the road on Corey as we speak, which for football and basketball games has been a little bit of a bottleneck there, losing a lane. And so we're thrilled to have that back. And, but yeah, it's really on the home stretch.
So you have the ribbon cutting, what you said on the 11th. Is that like the official unveiling for all the media to come in and check it out, or is that something totally different as well?
Yeah, so it's kind of a combo. We're going to do two events. So the ribbon cutting is for the donors that came in at a very high level. The lead donors were Larry and Rhonda Shakely, and our friends at TQL, and a few of our other high-level donors, and the university president, and the board of trustees, and those folks. So they'll be there for kind of the official unveiling on June 11th, and then on the 18th, we'll have a follow-up, kind of what we'll call the grand opening of other donors and local, our university staff and other athletic department staff, to kind of really kick it off and celebrate, because that will kind of be like the official, more or less like football be in there and operating and 100% using the space by the 18th. The 11th is sort of like, okay, everything that possibly could be done needs to be done by then, so that we can show it to the Shakeleys and show it to our other high level supporters that helped really get the project done.
Did you give yourself an office space in there? Like you got a spot?
I don't have an official spot. There's some flex space, and there's a nice we tried to plan ahead. There's some room to grow spaces that we have there. So I think I'll definitely have a home if I want to, choose to operate remotely out of there. Preferably by the nutrition center.
Makes sense.
Do you have a favorite feature or graphic or something that in conception you thought would be cool, and it was even cooler than you thought once it became real, or any element to the space in general that you think came to life really, really well?
That's a hard question to answer. I mean, really feel that way about the whole building, which sounds like a little bit of a cop-out, but it really, I'd say when I give the tours, it's funny because people ask me now, like, we've given so many tours to our donors and prospective donors and, campus partners that, athletics causes occasional paperwork issues and emergencies on campus, right? So the folks that we kind of cause headaches for, we try and say, hey, come get a tour. And the place on the tour that I think I'm most proud of the planning and design that's really had it come all together is in the weight room. It's almost 11,000 square feet with the second level cardio deck. It's got these three gigantic, beautiful, like glass garage doors that open and with access direct to the field. All the technology was thought of in that room, in addition to all the equipment and the way that Nico and our strength coach, and they put endless hours of thought into where every single piece of equipment is going to go, and running data and power conduit in the floor, the foundation, so that weight rack stations have technology wired to them. And then the graphics, the graphics package in there, kind of going off of like this. We had this idea, we're just generating ideas on what do we want the feel of this room to be. And we kind of came up with this like terminology of like an engine room, like it should be gritty, and it's where all the work gets done. It's not, it's equipped to help you get better and grow, and motivate you, but it's not super flashy, right? But it is like Cincinnati and gritty. And we really feel like the whole layout and design really shows that in an awesome way.
I know when this thing was presented and the renderings came out, it looked larger than life. And then you see it sitting there on campus, and it's substantially bigger than that. Was there a moment where you were just standing outside this thing and you went, are you kidding me? We really put this here in this tiny little space?
Yeah, there was. And it was when it was the first site visit we did of the construction site, after it had really become a construction site. And so at that point, it was really just a big hole in the ground. And it was a hole within the hole in the ground where the hydrotherapy area and all the in-ground pools were installed. So, they had Shakely Athletic Center in a field there before. And so they tore up the field, right? And it just, okay, there's gravel and dirt. And then they kind of it seemed like, right, it went really fast, but it seemed like for months, all we were doing was digging, just excavating, digging, foundation pours, digging. And we go down there and it's covered in mud. And we stand in the middle of where the building, it kind of joins with the practice facility itself, the field. And you stood there and you looked up and it felt like, Jefferson Avenue was 30 feet up and it felt like Corey Boulevard was 60 feet up, and you couldn't see baseball and you couldn't see the 50-yard field because we were down, dug in. And it just really was like, wow, this is like, it felt like you were standing in the middle of a stadium, right? Because it was that big of a footprint. And people still get that feeling now when they walk in the field itself, because the kind of just the power of the indoor space is awesome.
What's it like on Jefferson standing next to that thing?
Yeah, so
it's incredible.
It is. We said it's really befitting of the architecture and the uniqueness of our campus. We said, we were joking with our university administrators because we went back and forth on the design of the building itself. And there was a comment made where somebody was like, look, I don't think we need to build the Guggenheim, right? Like, and, like a box would be fine. It's a field, guys. And there were just so many people that felt strongly that it's going to be a showpiece for the, corner of campus as a whole. And that, we're not going to waste this opportunity to make it a wow factor. And so it doesn't look like a field, right? It looks more like, as John Cunningham says, it's like got kind of a Sydney Opera House feel. And it's got this, translucent panels you can't really see in. But it's magnificent look and very unique in college football.
From a sponsorship and donor standpoint, how are things going as far as, are there still spaces available for people to, they want to, have the Bearcat Journal linen closet, we can pony up, some money for that or something. How has that been going, and how was the reception bringing it to, whether it was donors or corporations in the city? I mean, how do you guys feel like, I don't know if every spot is spoken for or whatever, but like, how do you feel that has gone from the time you started to where we are now?
Yeah, it's been great. It was an interesting journey to see. Okay, our fundraising team was basically asked to, start raising money for named spaces and features and, for this building. And we didn't have renderings for months and months before we had committed that we're going to do this project. It got board approval. Shovels are in the ground, and it's like, well, it'd be nice if we could actually show, what we're going to do, right? And there's just some design delays, and it's like, okay, we knew exactly what the footprint was going to be, so let's just start, because we know we got to get going. But where's the weight room going to be located, and where's the atrium going to be located, and where's the players lounge? Like, well, we'll figure that out. And so it worked out on a construction timeline, but it wasn't ideal for our fundraising team, but they started to get it done. And then once you can show them actual plans, and then once you go from plans on paper to walking through and you really get a sense of that scale, that's when the donors were really like, okay, now I can see it, right? And so all the main spaces, I think, are essentially named, but there are some still available. Our team's done a tremendous job. We raised our fundraising goal from 35 million up to 45 million as a kind of a benchmark to try and facilitate the extra funding that we needed in order to accomplish the scale of the facility, to include the dining hall and nutrition center for all of our student athletes. And we are right there at probably the 5-yard line of hitting that number. We've got some big things we think ready to come out soon, but definitely looking for, a couple of checks to come in if anybody's interested to help us get over the goal line. I'm sure that we could find some cool names to put up in some cool spaces.
How much extra staff did you guys have to hire to just run the building from a day to day, whether it be nutritionists, cooks, chefs, things like that, just in general? Was that part of it as well, because you have all this new space, or are you just taking folks from other places into this space?
Yeah, so for the most part, it's the latter. It's, our entire football operation, all the coaching staff, support staff, recruiting, right? Zach Grant and his whole area, strength conditioning, Nico and his whole area, our nutrition staff, our athletic trainers, and our equipment room are all moving out of Lindner and into this building. So we'll be adding probably 6 staff to help run the dining hall, because that's going to be a 10 to 15 meals per week for our athletic teams, and it's going to be student athletes only. So that's an entirely new operation. But other than that, it's a transition of all of our existing staff out of that, and then there's kind of this beneficial domino for the rest of our athletics department that follows that, which is, if you've been in the Lindner Center and seen the space that football occupies, right, from an office perspective, it's more than half of the 7th floor is football. And then down in the basement, there's 10 team meeting rooms. There's the main football all staff meeting room. And then all of our student athletes share the training room and the weight room. And, that right now that's 450 student athletes. Well, when football moves out, then that's 100 plus guys, plus all the staff and all the wear and tear and scheduling demands that go with it. And so that really allows the rest of the rooms and the rest of the sports to be utilized a lot more efficiently. Like right now, the example I share is that we've got baseball, right? As you mentioned, Chad, you've got, Jordan and the guys done a tremendous job this year. And they've, made a regional for the first time since 2019. But if you go in the baseball office suite in Lindner, you've got kind of an open concept office suite with one private office. So you've got Jordan in a private office, and then his entire coaching staff and ops team and player personnel are basically at cubicles. So we're going to reshuffle the deck in the Lindner Center with all this new space that football is going to provide moving out. And baseball will have a working office space with multiple offices. Volleyball and soccer will each gain more offices, right? And so that's going to be beneficial to all our teams to really kind of grow into the Lindner Center more effectively.
Did you have people had like a flag they got to go in and plant, like we claim this area,
Yeah. So there was,
you could have done a heck of a reality series on the YouTube channel,
yes,
with redistribution of the office space,
like a draft.
Yeah.
Yeah. And even in like the hydrotherapy area in the Lindner Center now, football has a hydro area over there. And so we're making an upgrade. We shut the hydrotherapy area down so we could refinish and resurface the pools and the floor and add some TVs. And so we want football to move out. And then it also feel like all of our other teams have new equipment and new spaces that better suit them, right? Because Nico's using 10 to 12 gigantic squat racks right now, and he'll have that in the new building. And so right in Lindner, right, we only need 2 to 3 of those for like throwers in the track and field program. The other guys and gals don't need that amount of weight. They need maybe more plyometric space and more dynamic workout space. So it's really going to help everybody in our athletics program.
I know you guys have like the section that kind of showcases all the different jersey combinations and everything. When the building opens up, will you have the new Nike jerseys on the mannequins?
Yeah, so that's interesting. We've started to brainstorm, and there's been like a debate going on about because we're gonna have a player reveal here at some point prior to the grand opening, and the reason for that is that we've got, June is a big recruiting weekend. It's full of 3 recruiting weekends in June for football. So we're not wasting the opportunity of getting recruits in there. So recruits are going to be in this building ahead of the June 11th opening, which means our guys are going to be in there. Now that means we got to do a player reveal before the recruits see it, and then followed by the grand opening. And so we're trying to figure out, okay, does that mean we do the jersey reveal at the same time, or do we tease one to the guys or not? But we're trying to see if we're going to have all of our pieces in from the new sets that are going to be unveiled. And so we're having an internal debate about that. It's a good question.
Good job, Dave. Nailed it.
That's what I'm here for.
I've seen 2 of the 3 new ones, and they look sweet. So we are really excited to show those off.
You're more than welcome to text pictures to Chad and I if you want.
We won't tell anybody.
No,
okay.
We don't tell anybody anything. So.
Right.
I get in trouble for that all the time, John.
Are you guys gonna do? I'm assuming so, but like with the graphics team and the video team, they're gonna do like a big video to put out on Twitter and everything of whether it's the player reveal part or just like the aerials around all the different spaces and everything.
Yeah, Stipe and his crew, right? So they've got a whole social plan ready to go, and we'll have cameras rolling when the guys or go through and get to see it for the first time. And then it'll be, I'm told the proper terminology is a social media blitz on June 11th to accompany the ribbon cutting. So there will be some great stuff coming out to show it off.
Dave, I think that's a Wednesday night.
It is, but I won't be here. That's why I was glad to hear about the one on the 18th as well. So that is also a Wednesday night.
Yes.
Fine. So maybe Keegan and I will get to go live from the new indoor practice facility for a show. Whatever.
Just gonna throw me out on that.
You said you're not going to be available.
I'm available on the 18th.
I'm already going to have been there on the 11th. We'll talk about this after the fact. As an administrator, what has this week been like watching just bombs being lobbed across the landscape of college football as you look around and go, where does this land? What does this look like going forward?
Yeah, it's fascinating. It seems like within the circles of different conferences, right, there's almost like a prediction of what's going to come out and who's going to say what and what the reactions are going to be, or, we're going to get some headlines today out of, a couple of people. And then I think some of it's a relief, right, to get out things that people have been talking about for a little while. And, the playoff format obviously seems to be a very popular discussion point, and the House case settlement, which, your guess is as good as mine. We were, really crossing our fingers that it was going to be announced by now. But I think there's some logic or thought that they like doing things on Friday. So maybe tomorrow's the day. I don't know. Maybe this could, or whenever, maybe tomorrow. That's one thing about college athletics is there's never a dull moment. You never know what's around. And there's always personalities to keep us entertained. That's for sure.
So now that this building is essentially done, what is your next major project that you're going to undertake?
Yeah, that's a great question. People have asked, like, how many tours have you done? And I said, well, I sort of stopped counting at 50. And they're like, well, what are you going to do next? And I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to, like my whole tenure here has been wrapped in working on this building and planning and designing and showing it off. So that's a great question. We're trying to figure out the best way that we can help Jordan and the baseball team, and really develop their players. And we've got batting cages, retractable cages that are we were able to get into this indoor practice facility project, which is as right adjacent to baseball, which will give them an immediate relief on somewhere to go. They're trying to figure out some things for player areas underneath the stands and having some more team meeting space, or potentially looking at something in left field there where they've got existing cages, and do we look to maybe do a pitching lab or something like that, right? So maybe figuring out what that is. Volleyball locker room is in need of an upgrade. And then really all of our other programs, right? Basketball got both men's and women's got a tremendous new locker room last year in Fifth Third. Volleyball has had a project kind of on the books for a little while to make theirs kind of up to a new level. So we've got to get that across the finish line, and then go back and look at all of our other Olympic locker rooms, right, are in this hallway down in the basement of the Linder Center, right next to the equipment room and the training room and the weight room. So great locations, and we did some great things down there with branding and graphics last year to kind of liven the space up. But in those individual spaces, we're approaching 20 years old in there, and we might need to be looking at some things like, do we need a refresh of those spaces with lockers and some of those player areas? But and overall financially, it's kind of figuring out where does all this land in the new world, trying to cope with the financial impacts of the House case. And the Big 12 transition will be complete financially next year as we start in July, which we're very excited about. So once we kind of get our feet underneath us there under that new model, then we'll be able to kind of take a look and see what can come next.
Before we let you go, I have to ask this question because it's on everybody's mind. Revenue share is supposed to start in like a month, like 4.5 weeks.
Yeah.
And the House case is not settled, and players clearly are expecting to get paid. And as a guy that's kind of working in that realm, how in the heck do you navigate this when nothing is official, but everything is assumed, and like you're like floating in space, like, and the gravity machine is right there, but like the hose doesn't connect.
No, that's a very accurate depiction of our situation right now. Luckily, I feel like I put in a lot of work for kind of like if I can nerd out for a second, and like being the numbers guy, right? If you're in the Excel spreadsheets and you've got if statements and if thens, right? So we feel like we've done a good job of planning for if and then, and some if, right, and all these different scenarios. So okay, if it passes, this is immediately what the dominoes will fall in order to help us actually execute. If it doesn't pass, or doesn't pass by a certain date, right? If it does, I guess there's two different options of it not passing at all or just continuing to be in limbo. Then we operate the way we're operating now, with the help of Cincy Reigns, but also knowing that our state law allows us to be a little more aggressive than others. So kind of preparing to utilize that if it comes to that point. We'll have to have more discussions, but it's certainly been like a lot of planning and scenarios on managing the possibilities, but we feel like we're all just waiting for the word to be go, and then we'll start the final process of implementation. But it can't come soon enough in order for us to just kind of like get going and know the rules of the game. And I think it really is beneficial to UC to help equalize the playing field, and we're fully prepared to be competitive in that new world.
Anything else, Dave?
No, we'll let the man get out of his car.
We're glad you arrived safely at your destination. Your kids are very good at sign language. They were like communicating quietly in the back of the car, and we appreciate that.
I had bribed them with they're very good, first of all, I have to give them credit, but I did bribe them with I saved a couple of Chick-fil-A brownies for the occasion. And they're like, "Oh, this is good." I was like, "Yeah." They're like, "You need to do this more." And I was like, "That's fine with me."
You have twins too, right?
I do. Yeah, twin girls. Yep.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
It's I would say it's in the water, but nobody's having twins at UC. It's just a require. It's like part of the interview process.
Yes.
Twins? Okay, you're in. You're in.
Yes.
You're good.
On to stage 2 of interview process.
Yes. No,
Thanks, John. We appreciate it. And I can't wait till the 11th to get in there and get a look.
Awesome. Yeah. Thanks, guys. We'll see you soon.
Thank you.
All right. See ya.
There you go. This is going to be a bumpy ride here for a few minutes. As my daughter just left to go spend the night at a friend's house, and the dogs are flipping out about it.
Well, here, you can mute it. I have a little bit of breaking Big 12 news.
Okay, go ahead.
It not breaking this minute, but breaking, and I want to give proper credit. David Rumsey of Front Office Sports is reporting that the Big 12 has decided to not sell an ownership stake to private equity, according to Brett Yarmark, told Front Office Sports in Orlando, and that also that the selling of conference naming rights is also on pause, if not completely off the table. So there you go.
That's it. I'm happy to hear about private equity not being a thing at this point in time, because I think there's too much in the air to risk what private equity entails in the landscape of college sports right now. I'm not against it as a whole, as an idea, but right now, I wouldn't gamble my future on anything right now because the future is entirely uncertain.
Right. I mean, it's the bright lights of a huge payout on the front end, but then you're paying a lot of interest for how many years down the road when you don't really know what that looks like right now. I mean, I could totally understand it from the Big 12 standpoint. Like once revenue share gets on footing and they're like, we're competing, but we're like this close. Well, what if we just got some PE money and gave that to all the schools and let them do with it what they will, and how much could that potentially increase our talent levels and then wins and exposures and all those things. But yeah, right now I'm not agreeing to anything where I'm paying like X percent of something 10 to 20 years from now in this current setup.
It just doesn't seem wise because
last week we were apparently close to a 16-team playoff with like 4 AQs, and now today it feels like we're very, very close to a 16-team playoff with 5 AQs and 11 at-large spots. So like in 1 week, the SEC has basically told the Big Ten to go where, and we might be siding now with all these other schools.
Real quick, this has to be this segment because there's so much of it to get to. Let's go ahead and timestamp this. Brought to you by Turtles Brew, 6% ABV, 0 sugar, 0 carbs, gluten-free, a bourbon-infused sweet tea that has 5 different flavors. It has lemonade tea, strawberry mint, cherry lime, raspberry peach, orange vanilla. You can find them at more than 50 locations in Greater Cincinnati, over 100 locations in and around the state of Ohio. Portion of the proceeds go to Save the Sea Turtles. To find the location nearest you, simply go to turtlesbrew.com. All right, Dave. There's so much to get to here. We'll continue on the path that we're on. Are you surprised the SEC is kind of going down this path of 5 plus 11? Even if eventually they go back to 4-4, 2-2, 1, whatever. I'm kind of surprised that the SEC is looking at 5-11, which is 5 automatic qualifiers, the winners of the top 5 conferences, and then 11, just straight 11 at-large bids. Does this surprise you? That they aren't taking the 4 guaranteed AQs, I guess?
No, I mean, not after, I mean, maybe a little bit, but and I haven't, obviously all this stuff comes out in the middle, during the day while I'm working. So it's hard to truly dive into a bunch of the stuff. It's sounding like that other model was more of a Big Ten push than an SEC push. And from what I'm starting to read, it's the SEC is kind of not pissing the Big Ten off, but the Big Ten seems to be the ones most bothered by this idea of a 5+11.
Yeah.
From the SEC standpoint, like, I root for an SEC team, so I don't call myself an SEC fan. I could care less about the other 15 schools. I don't think it really matters. Like, I think they're probably going to get 4 teams in most years, regardless of whether they're AQs or not.
Yeah.
So
I don't disagree with that.
If they could kind of, and let's not be foolish here, like, these guys, what Greg Sankey said, like, nobody contacted him about his comment or whatever. Like, these guys have rabbit ears bigger than anybody out there. So I'm sure there's at least a small, tiny part that it's like, we can kind of shift some of the anger at us as being the ones like trying to ruin everything or take control of everything. If we can even shift a little bit of that away from us, then they probably look at it as a beneficial thing to do.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm still piecing together the SEC, just figuring out, because I think it's the right thing to figure out, but I also thought it would be very easy to just go with, we get 4 spots. No matter what, we get 4 spots. They seem like, Dave, that at least the people in the SEC were pretty far down the line, because they were talking about, we agreed to the 9-game schedule. If we get 4 AQs, we agreed to doing the 3 versus 6 and 4 versus 5 on conference championship weekend. Like, it also seemed like it kind of caught SEC people by surprise that was the direction coming out of the spring meetings.
Yeah, definitely. I think when you got more coaches involved, it seems like that might have been where maybe the shift in philosophy came from. Because, I mean, if you're a competitive guy, you're a competitive leader of your team, like, you're probably just like, I don't really care.
Yeah.
Like, and honestly, me being the, like, who has come on this show for how many, basically since, like, they started the 14 playoff with 5 power conference teams, and I've made fun of that. So for however long that's been around, like, I've been the one being like, no one cares about the sport as a whole. So would the 4-4, whatever 2-2-1 thing be technically probably a little bit better for the Big 12? I mean, I guess so, but as a football fan, I would rather it be this. I personally would not have any automatic qualifiers. You take the 16 best teams. I don't think.
Then there's no need to have conferences, Dave. Winning your conference has to mean something.
Right. I agree. But if you win your conference, you're making the playoff. That's my whole point. Like, 99% of the time, whoever wins the conference is going to make the playoff.
Maybe.
So, but I like that. I'm a fan of not giving automatic bids to teams that, like, didn't even make their conference championship game. That's And that's just ridiculous to me.
Yes.
You know, so if this is the way that it goes, I will be happy about that. From that standpoint, it seems like that this has nothing to do with the whole straight seeding thing, which I also think is the right move. I did not agree with how they did seeding in this first iteration of the event.
Those things aren't mutually exclusive, though. I mean,
right. That's what I mean. Like, you can do one and not the other, or vice versa. But it seems like they're going in the direction of actually doing both of them in the way that I would have liked them to do it.
Yeah. I still don't hate the 4 best conference champions getting the bye. I think it does a good job of helping incentivize the conference championships, or at least like the intrigue in each conference championship. Because here's what I worry, Dave. Like a year like last year, Arizona would have gotten in a 16-team playoff, but it would have been on the very back end, and there would have been very little reason to care about the Big 12 and its conference race if one of those teams wasn't going to be getting a bye, if that makes sense.
No, it does make sense. I guess I would just like go at the other end of the spectrum of being like, it's very hard for me to look at, you know, Boise State, even as great as they were, as well as they played, and as much as I loved Ashton Genty last year, and be like, yeah, that team deserves a bye over, you know, loser of Big Ten title game or SEC title game.
Yeah. Jason, I do not agree with this. I think Sankey doesn't mind being the bad guy at all. I think there's a very interesting discussion to have here, Dave, of Aaron and I have talked about this a lot. Like, I get the hate for Sankey right now, but the man's job, what he was hired to do and paid to do, is be the commissioner of the SEC and do whatever he feels best for the SEC. But I also have some understanding of the point of view that this is the way college sports has gone, and there has to be some responsibility to stewarding the game forward, because you have forced yourself into this position. You keep demanding more and more and more and more power. Then you have to, at least in some way, bear the responsibility of what's best for the game alongside doing what you feel is best for the SEC. And that is a very difficult, if not actually impossible, tightrope to walk.
I agree. It has to be tough because your job is to promote your conference and do everything in your power to separate your conference from everybody else.
And you're getting a lot of money to do that.
And you should, like, the way I look at it, you should make no apologies for trying to do that. You know, It's a lot different than like, and you know, tons of fans hate Roger Goodell. You know who doesn't hate Roger Goodell? The 32 owners. Because he's helping make them all a ton of money.
Yeah.
Now, in college, it's a little bit different, where I think it is slightly unfair that, like, the SEC and the Big Ten have, you know, with great power comes great responsibility, so to speak. But they're not, like, this is my problem with there not being some sort of governing body that actually has power that looks out for everybody, the greater good. Because I don't think it's their responsibility. Like, when Greg Sankey took the job over from Mike Slive, one of the descriptions in the job description was not look out for the greater good of college football. It was do everything in your power to keep elevating the SEC and all of their programs, regardless of what sport it was. So do you probably, or should you probably feel some level of responsibility or caring as like, we are the premier conferences, we are making the most money there, we do hold some level of, we do need to have some level of understanding to make sure that the sport continues in the fashion that is in. But like if I'm Greg Sankey or I'm Kirby Smart or if I'm Ryan Day, like, or I don't give a rip about what happens to the MAC or the Sun Belt. You know, like I don't care.
I agree. But the only counterpoint I would make to that is they asked for this. They didn't ask for this. They demanded that they be given autonomy, that they be placed on a pedestal at the top of the sport. A sport without a commissioner, a sport without a actual governing body, like that isn't beholden to the conferences, because the schools and the conferences make up the NCAA. Like the NCAA is like you talked about the NFL. The NFL is the power structure, and what they say trickles down. In this weird deal that we have, the power trickles up. And it just, again, I have said to Aaron many times as we've talked about this on the nightcap, because it's one of our, main things that we talk about, because there's so much that's changing and happening. And, we want to keep the fan base connected to everything that's going on. You asked for this. So you don't get to ask for power and then be like, well, I don't want that power.
Right.
I just want this power. Like, you don't get to be selective in that, because you demanded this. You forced yourself into this position. So while your job is to steward the SEC, it is also, you can't be mad that they're asking you to steward the game when you're the one that has usurped all the power. That's my big word for the day.
Usurped. Just good. You used it properly. That's good.
Thank you.
No, I agree with.
I went to public school in Northern Kentucky and public college in West Virginia. To be able to use usurp correctly is a big feather in my cap.
Right, and I don't disagree with you about that. Like, it is a bit hypocritical to say like we want, and then when you get some pushback or whatever, like say, well, we didn't, we're just part of the team here, guys. Like,
right.
But at the same time, I already said it. Like, I would just kind of be like, sorry, sometimes life isn't fair. Like we're in the system that we have, we've and it isn't like, I think people not forget, but like the SEC was not really, this isn't a long time that they've had this in the grand scheme of things. Like, they didn't really start down this path until they decided to have a conference championship game.
Yeah.
I mean, the Big Ten, Notre Dame, the Pac-12, I mean, in the 60s and 70s with UCLA and USC, and, and it's not there. Like, I mean, part of me is, because I went to UT and cheer for them and everything, it's not their fault. They're in a bunch of states without pro sports or didn't have pro sports for a long time and built up these rabid fan bases and 100,000 seat stadiums. Like, I'd be like, I'm not giving you guys like, sorry. Like, we did all this stuff organically. It wasn't just like somebody just showed up and said, we pick you. You're getting you guys are going to be the big dogs and everything. Like, they took it. They were not it, and they took it. And so, like, somebody, but that falls back on the everybody can do their own thing. You can get your own TV contract. Some leagues can have 8 conference games, some have 9. Like in the NFL, Jerry Jones has more, not even the richest owner anymore, but like he's always the one that gets used as the example. Like, we'll use the Broncos because they are the richest ownership now. I mean, they can do certain things that the Bengals probably can't, but they can't do what they probably could do if they were allowed to do whatever they wanted.
Right.
But in college, you can do that.
Well, it would be like
an extent.
If there was a commissioner of the NFC East,
right,
and each division had a commissioner, and though there wasn't a Roger Goodell. It was all those commissioners are supposed. It's why, Dave. It's why and we're starting to see it this week. I wondered how long it was going to take, but this week we're starting to see it. It's why when everybody has said the Big Ten and the SEC are going to break away and create their own thing, they, to the core of their existence, have a philosophical difference in how they believe this should be done, and over the years, they hate each other. These are not two people that just out of the kindness of their being are going to be like, all right, we're going to work together, and you're going to be the AFC, and we're going to be the NFC, and we're going to put somebody in charge, and we're all going to get along. That is not going to happen, Dave. It's not going to happen.
No. And that's why I said earlier, like, I feel like, I don't know what the percentage is, but the SEC now may be shifting back to this other side, putting the Big Ten on an island a little bit. Yeah. Because, let's be real. The right now, and we'll see what, I think it's up. I think what Michigan is kind of up in the air. The Big Ten's a 2-team conference, Ohio State and Oregon.
Yeah, but there is a difference that the SEC does hate that the Big Ten won the last 2. But what the SEC really hates is that when it comes down to money, the Big Ten will always have more.
Yeah, I think part of that. I think part of that is part of maybe the the shift in this philosophy is like, why would we agree to something to give the Big Ten 4 AQs? They don't have 4 teams good enough to make the playoff. Let them fight it out. Let them fight it out in conference and see how many of these teams actually finish in the top 16.
Yeah. I know it doesn't make sense because the SEC is the power in football, but location, history, market, the Big Ten is more lucrative. It's a more lucrative endeavor, especially now. You've got the LA schools, you've got Oregon, which is a big money driver. Like, the Big Ten is more financially stable and probably always will be than the SEC. The SEC knows that. They hate it. And they don't want to do any, like you just said, they don't want to, more than anything. They think, maybe rightfully so, why would we agree to 4-4 with the Big Ten when we feel like we could get 6 to their 3?
Yeah, because, I mean, like, I would have to go back and look at it, but I would venture to guess, like, the teams that are fighting for, like, miss out on the conference championship game in both conferences, I would venture to guess more times than not that the SEC team that misses out on that is higher ranked than the Big Ten team.
Typically, yeah.
So It's like, why do we need to have guarantee them anything? I don't know. I mean, if that's the way it happens, I'll be happy about it. I think that's to me it's a don't let perfect get in the way of good type scenario. And I don't think it's perfect, but I think it would be good, and it would be better than what it was this first year, and better than what they were originally discussing as the potential next iteration.
Just looking at the final CFP rankings from, after the conference championship games last year, the Big Ten would have had 4. The SEC would have had 6. The Big 12 would have had 1. The ACC would have had, I guess, 2, because you've got your group of 5 champion and 9 Boise State.
Notre Dame.
And then Notre Dame was at 5. So the 16 would have been the 16, I guess, is what I was double checking. Making sure that every conference every section was represented. Boise would have had the group of 5. Arizona State would have had the Big 12. The ACC actually would have had 3, Dave. So it would have been SEC 6,
SMU,
Big 10
SMU,
4,
Louisville, and Clemson.
SMU, Miami, who actually finished at 13.
Okay.
And Clemson. So, yeah, I mean, I guess it is like a legitimate, like, the SEC is looking at this and saying, I think we'll just go ahead and take more. If it's just 1 through 16, maybe 1 through 15, if like the group of 5 champ is not in the top 16, then they take a spot and 16 falls off.
Well, that's what I mean.
For the most part,
if you're in the SEC and you go 9-3 or better, you're making the playoff.
Yeah.
Regardless of whether they switch to from 8 to 9 conference games.
2015, 2013. This is a lot more difficult because the Pac-12 kind of screws things up.
You can't go back that far. And
you can't go back that far. It was 1 year, Dave. 1 year.
You said 2013.
23. Sorry.
Okay, I was like
23. My bad. My brain was looking like doing math in my head. 2023. But Washington made it, and Oregon was in the Pac-12. So Arizona was in the Pac-12 at 14. So it's a little different, but Texas was in the Big 12. But traditionally, Michigan, Ohio State, Penn State would have made it. That would have been 3 Big Ten. Now, obviously, they have Washington and Oregon, so it would have been 5. But Alabama, Georgia, Ole Miss, LSU, and then you would add Oklahoma and Texas from that group.
Yeah.
So I don't know. 5-11 just is. You're right. I think fans across the country will revolt at 4-4, 2-2-1.
That's an invitational. That's not a playoff.
Yeah. And the SEC wants more control over the committee because they believe that their 8-game schedule is stronger than everybody else's 9-game schedule.
Well, some of their coaches, I don't know if it's coaches. I've seen just some ridiculously silly comments, like where you got like one of them was, I don't know if it was Kalen DeBoer, said something about like, schedule and blah blah blah, and then someone retweeted it and was like, "Oh, like you mean like how Alabama got in over Florida State?" Like, so
again, you lost to Vanderbilt and Oklahoma, who were not good.
Right.
You lose the benefit of the doubt. at that point in time.
I mean, my opinion, as someone who went to school in the state of Tennessee, if you lose to Vanderbilt, I don't care what you did the rest of the season. Like
You're out.
that is a disqualification.
But in the Big Ten, that would have been said about Indiana prior to last year. Every once in a while, they'll get a higher right. The coach will be there for 2 years, and then they'll go back to being Indiana and Vanderbilt.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's part. I mean, and I know I should be when we do a show, I should stay up on this stuff more. But it's like that's part of the reason that it just kind of like my eyes glaze over. It's because like last week it was one thing, and now this week's like potentially a totally different thing. So who the hell knows what's going to happen next week? And why am I going to like dig into the weeds on all this stuff from a week to week basis when?
That's what makes it so hard to cover, is because you spend a ton of time talking about what is perceived as, okay, this is happening. And then you have one of these like commissioner meetings or AD meetings or presidential, like the presidents get together or whatever. And then the news that comes out of that is nothing like what everybody believed was happening.
Right.
As the wind blows, these people's minds change. And some of it, Dave, like we've had 1 year in the CFP, and already everything basically is being thrown out the window.
And I feel like it just always comes back to there's no one group in charge, and everybody is just trying to get theirs.
Well, it didn't break exactly right for us, so we got to change.
So fuck everybody else.
Right.
Like, yeah, exactly.
And what's going to happen, Dave? Every year, it's not going to break exactly right for either the SEC or the Big Ten. So every year, one of those two is going to try to bring the power back to the middle in terms of perception.
Yeah, super fun stuff.
This is what happens when you don't put anybody in charge.
Can't imagine why people might be losing some interest in all of this.
I mean, it would be like saying, to all the U.S. Chevy and Ford and whatever, the regulations are up to you guys. There's nobody in charge. You guys figure it out. And whoever sells the most that year is the one that gets to make the rules for that year. And if somebody passes you, well, then they get to make the rules for the next year. And then expecting that entire industry to succeed when the people making decisions only care about their bottom line. The SEC only cares about their bottom line. The Big Ten only cares about their bottom line. Nothing those two do is ever going to happen with synergy, because they're trying to beat it's Coke and Pepsi. You name it. Whatever two titans in the same industry, that's what this is. There is no chance the SEC is ever going to go, you know what, you're right. We should make decisions that are best for us, but we should keep the Big Ten in mind. We really should.
Guys, what do you think about this? Well, let's see. How do you think the Big Ten would feel?
And when we get that answer, let's not do what our instincts say, which is the exact opposite. What does the Big Ten think they want? Okay, we want to do the opposite of that. Let's now, and not only do what we think they want, Dave, but do it in the good faith that they're going to do the same and make their decisions on the best interest of the SEC. And people think these two are going to break away and be best friends?
Yeah.
Come on. Really? Really? It's, The other thing is the transfer portal, Dave. One window, two windows. I finally saw an article talk about it yesterday. Like, yeah, guess what? There's academic calendars at play. I meant to get to this with John Daniel, and I didn't, and I'm mad at myself for it. But I don't think people realize, like, the fiscal year runs to the end of June. So like July 1st is the start of a fiscal year, runs to the end of June, where the academic year, at least in football, runs from January to December. And then guys enter the transfer portal. Now they want to move it up. One of the coaches said it like, you want us to pay this? Like now, if we're going to move it to April, we're going to have these guys on our roster that don't want to be there, that we have to keep. And we have to keep giving a portion of our revenue share to, even though as soon as that window opens up in April, they're out of here. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Like, I almost think you just have to keep it. If you're going to do one, you have to keep it for a month in December at the end of the conference championship games and just deal with it.
Yeah, I haven't followed that very closely at all. I mean, other than the conversation we had with Zach a while back, where like having it in January just makes zero sense to me.
Yeah.
Like, 1 week after like Christmas or whatever, like how is this supposed to work?
And the kids are going to have to hit the portal, go on visits, find a school, negotiate a contract, and be enrolled in that school in 2 to 3 weeks.
Right.
All of it.
I mean, none of it really makes sense. So I try to stay away from things that I think don't make much sense. I'm already not that smart, so I don't need to make myself bogged down with anything else.
Yeah, but they're going to make a decision, and I fear once again it's not going to be that. How many times have we changed this already since the transfer portal started?
Oh yeah,
I mean it's changed every year. The number of days, when the windows are, when the window opens, when the window closes. It's like when does this say? Like every year it's different already.
I do think it's ridiculous that teams in the playoff are trying to win a national championship while also like dealing with the portal. But at the same time, I don't really feel that bad for them because you're in the playoff trying to win a national championship.
Yeah. And look, ideally, in a perfect world, if there were no other factors, the portal starts the day that the national championship game ends. Like the championship game's on Monday, the portal opens on Tuesday. It's open for a month. That's it. But that's not reality. That doesn't work with the calendar and the way the sport is constructed.
With the way that they refuse to go up against the NFL and that they have to have games on certain days, the playoff takes 6 weeks and it's not even over until like the middle of January when you already have had to be enrolled.
Right. Essentially, like the championship is the week that schools start back to class.
Yeah. And
worst case scenario, and if we're still under the pretense, Dave, the facade that it's about the student athlete, you have like 10 business days to enroll, get accepted, and then begin classes, or you can't be a student that semester. So you're opening the portal, essentially, if you wait until the end of the national championship, you're opening the portal at the deadline. And then you've got the 2-week extension, and everybody has to find a home in that 2 weeks, or that kid that doesn't is out of luck until June, is the way that would work. And that just, like I said the other night, if it's actually about the kids, and it's not. But if it's actually about the kids, the decisions being made would benefit the kids. And this is another one of those decisions, it looks like, that's not going to have the kids' best interest in mind at all. And it's going to be about a guy like Kirby Smart crying and moaning because his people that are making more money than anybody in college football, essentially, will have to do a little bit of extra work.
Right.
How much is your scouting department preparing for the playoffs, Dave? Do you think when UC makes the playoff, like Zach Grant and Jack Griffin are going to be in the fucking in the room breaking down tape?
Breaking down tape? No.
Or are they going to be getting ready for the portal or actively working the portal?
Yeah, these guys act like they've got like MAC level coaching staffs and support staffs. They've got more ex-coaches on, dry cleaning duty and airport pickup duty. And that's what I mean. Like, part of me is like, I think it's wrong, but I also don't feel sorry for them.
I don't feel sorry at all. Work, do your job. You'll be okay. If the assistant coaches have to, put in a couple extra hours making phone calls for 3 weeks, I think it'll be all right.
You're in the playoff. It's not hard. It's not real hard to get transfers to want to come play for you.
In our life, Dave, nobody in November and December when football and basketball are overlapping and we're working 2 beats and like going nonstop for 6 weeks. There's nobody out there that feels bad for us. There's nobody that's like, man, those guys, they're probably overworked having to do a football game and 2 basketball games and a press conference and practices and all the different content that they produce. And those guys are probably pretty overworked. There's not a single person that thinks that.
No.
You got a job to do it. And we're making a lot less money than a college football staffer. I'll just say that. I don't have a whole lot else on that stuff, but I know Greg Sankey's the bad guy right now. He probably should be. But the other thing is, Dave, you know what? Tony Petiti or whatever the Big Ten commission's name is.
Yes, Mr. Petiti.
He's staying out of the spotlight and letting Greg Sankey take the arrows right now.
Yeah.
Notice we're not hearing a whole lot from him at every turn. Sankey's the guy that we're seeing 15 Greg Sankey quotes a day right now.
Yeah, they're the ones that move the needle from that standpoint.
Yeah, no doubt about that. All right, that is your college football talk. Timestamp brought to you by Turtles Brew. 0 sugar, 0 carbs, gluten-free, 6% ABV. It's a bourbon-infused sweet tea. Cherry lime, raspberry peach, orange vanilla, lemonade tea, strawberry mint. You can find it in over 50 locations around greater Cincinnati, more than 100 in Ohio. So go to turtlesbrew.com to find the location nearest you. A portion of the proceeds, Dave, go to Save the Sea Turtles. And then finally, it probably should be the lead story, but we had John Daniel. And then, that kind of rolled into some college football stuff. The Bearcats at it tomorrow, Dave. 1:00, Knoxville. I don't know the name of the stadium.
You
don't either, and you went there. 1:00. It's probably not going to be 1:00. It's probably going to be a little later. We'll see. Maybe Mother Nature will give the Bearcats a break. It does look like the rain is supposed to stop in the area around 4 or 5 o'clock tomorrow. So I do think they'll get the game in. I'm just a little skeptical that it'll happen at 1. But your thoughts, Dave? The Bearcats get their first at-large bid since the 70s. They get to head to Knoxville in what is, Tennessee's the defending national champion, and Wake has been pretty much a baseball power. Like, they have been a mainstay at the top of the sport for a while now. It's a tough regional, but can't complain. You got in, you earned your spot, you get to play pretty close to home. I think there's probably going to be a lot of Bearcats down there. Should be a great day in Knoxville.
It should. Lindsey Nelson Stadium, by the way.
Okay.
Yeah, I think, Tennessee has probably not as much overall talent as they had last year, but still very, very good. Have just been really inconsistent this year. They started the year, I want to say 20, 22-0, something like that, just right out of the gate. But the Bearcats' style of play in these types of situations, especially against teams like Tennessee and Wake Forest, who are not used to playing against that. And Tennessee has a very low fielding percentage. They do not hold runners on base. It will be very interesting to see who they throw tomorrow, because there's a major drop off in, I don't know if I'd say like pitching or just mound presence. My buddies who watch more Tennessee baseball than I do, even in our group chat, we're talking about how, like, if so-and-so pitches against UC, they're going to steal double-digit bases. Like, that they just don't hold guys on, they don't throw guys out. And they don't play against teams that play this style. But now UC's got to get on base to make that a thing. And they've got to stay with two pretty powerful offenses to make that a thing as well. We'll see. I mean, what kind of odds do you think I could have got in April of 2019 if I had said that the Bearcats baseball team will play in 2 NCAA tournaments before the basketball team wins a tournament game?
Yeah, I mean, the basketball team's only played in 1 tournament since then.
No, they haven't. They haven't played in any.
Well, 2019 mixed
right,
team,
but I mean, like, that was March, and
Iowa.
then the baseball team played in May.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I probably could have got some pretty slick odds. But I think it's tough, man, because that park too, like, Tennessee and Wake are gonna, unless Nathan Taylor just pitches a gem.
Yeah.
I mean, that is
both teams. That's what scares me.
People will laugh at some of the balls that will go out of that park.
Yeah, it's 320 down the lines.
So,
my back, I might be able to stand in one corner of my backyard, and the other corner is 320.
It's one thing to want to play the small ball game, but it's a lot harder to do that in a small park.
Yes, that's my concern. Is that both of those? It's 2 of the best. Wake and Tennessee are 2 of the better power hitting teams in the country. They get on and they get the ball in the air, and in that stadium, it can be a nightmare because it can go from a sprinkle to a downpour real quick against both of these offenses. And I think that's probably the biggest point for UC that's still got to develop. The pitching is okay. Especially, you've got 2 guys that you feel really comfortable with. The bullpen's been a little sporadic. They've had some times, go back to that West Virginia game where they just couldn't turn it off. West Virginia just kept 2 runs, 1 run, 2 runs, 1 run, and next thing you know, you're down 10-3 because every inning they're putting a run or 2 on the board. That's what I worry about is if it's not Taylor, or if he gives you 6 and you hold him to 3 runs in 6 innings, you still got to get 3 more innings. You still got to get 9 more outs out of this pitching staff against 2 offenses that are at the top of the sport.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then the pitching staffs aren't bad. Like the earned run averages are for their 2 staffs are decent.
Yeah.
Wake's is a little less, but I don't know. It's a tall task to beat either Wake or Tennessee, I think, this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I want to see who Tennessee throws tomorrow, if they throw Doyle or not, because he is definitely a cut above, and they might have Tony Vitale might have already said who they're going to throw. I have no idea. He's a cut above everybody else they have by a substantial margin. So do you throw him game one? It doesn't guarantee you beat Miami, but the goal is to win two, come out of the chute, win 2 games. Can't win 2 if you don't, can't go 2-0 if you don't go 1-0.
Right.
So, do you take the chance of throwing your second or third guy and saving him? I don't know, but yeah, they've been inconsistent, and they do some things that UC could exploit. Now UC's got to beat Wake first for it really to truly matter. I feel like the attention is more on Tennessee as the host and everything, even though UC isn't playing them yet and isn't guaranteed to play them even in game 2. I mean, there could be Tennessee was down to Wright State. I don't think it was last year. I think it was the year before when they didn't make it to the College World Series. Hit a grand slam in the bottom of the 9th to win the first game against Wright State. So but that's the element of that park is you're never really out of it, because you can just get some guys on and have somebody. From UC standpoint, hit a not even a warning track shot, and that's a home run there.
Yeah, like I said, that's why even if Taylor gets you 6 or 7, you get back to that dilemma. Do you go with O'Connor after him like they did in the tournament, in the Big 12 tournament, just to get that first win? But then, your chances of winning the regional, if you do get the first one, increase dramatically if you get the second one, and then they have to beat you twice to win the whole thing. It's a lot. The other interesting thing is, Dave, Miami's kind of lurking here. Miami's got a couple quad 1 wins. I know UC beat them bad the first time they played. The second time it was only 6-4. I think Miami might be able to give Tennessee a little bit of trouble.
I think Tennessee might score 100.
Okay.
I mean, I don't think Miami can hit a little bit, can hit. I don't think they can throw through that lineup over 9
4
innings.
times. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if Tennessee doesn't score double digits, I would be stunned. I mean, they had one game this year, they scored 24, 27, something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I have a hard time believing they can keep their bats quiet enough for 9 innings to get a win.
That is the thing I have to keep reminding myself, thinking about this, it's played on a wiffle ball field, essentially.
And for as much Tennessee's inconsistencies were much more defensively and pitching than offensively. They're still, and part of that is buoyed by playing in that park, but this is where the games are.
Right. If the games are at Wake Forest, we'd probably be having a different conversation.
Right. I mean, they're one of the best hitting teams in the country.
Yeah.
I don't think you can really say that about anybody in the Big 12. Nobody in the Big 12 lines up with them hitting the ball. And I don't think anybody really in the Big 12 lines up with Wake. They were very much right up there as well.
Yeah, this is kind of a opposite year for Wake, where their pitching has been kind of their bread and butter. They lose 2 guys to the Reds in the first round the last 2 years.
Chase Burns was at Tennessee and then transferred to Wake.
Right. But they can hit the crap out of it. That's my main concern for tomorrow. Hopefully it's wet and it's gross and the offense stinks tomorrow. Just let UC grind it out.
Just for reference, I think I saw that Tennessee's current roster had 3 or 4 projected first rounders. And of their commits for the incoming class, I think 7 of them were top 100 projected draft picks.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's just the type of, we're just talking, I mean, we talked SEC earlier with football. Like, the SEC baseball is, I mean.
It's a different animal.
Yeah.
It's a different animal. Would they get 10 of the 16 regionals?
And it's 6 of the top 8 and 13 teams in.
Yeah, I think they got 10 of the 16 regionals are SEC, more than half. It's big time baseball.
Mm-hmm.
It's big time baseball. All right, you got anything else?
I don't think so. I'm gonna catch the second half of this Knicks Pacers game to see who my Thunder will bludgeon starting next week.
They've got the majority of the games at their place, so I think they're winning home games by an average of 73 points a game or something.
Well, they have playoff wins of 50, 40, 30, so, and 1 loss by 4.
Yeah.
at home. So I'm kind of bummed though. We're going to be on vacation. I was hoping to go to game 4, but there's 3 games. The 3 games in the week that we're gone. So I don't really want it to go game 6, and that game would probably cost a crap ton of money to go to.
Yeah.
So
yeah. I don't think I'm going to be able to call any of my people in Indy and get you a discount to that one.
Yeah, I mean, if it is Pacers Thunder, let's just ask Corey. Like, hey Corey, can you get Dave some tickets?
Yeah, I mean, I think Drew might be able to get you some tickets too, even though he got announced as officially an assistant in Indiana yesterday. But he's got to know some people in that place. I would bet Corey will be going.
I would hope Corey would be going. I would hope Corey was at game 5 last night.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he doesn't work there anymore. He works here. So
yeah, but I mean, like someone wouldn't give him a damn ticket or pass or something.
Or he couldn't get into the scout section.
Right. You're a scout. Pro players.
Yeah. Anybody got a little brother? Any of you guys? All right, that's going to wrap it up. Thanks to John Daniel. I'm excited, man. I can't wait to get into the IPF and get a look at things. It looks incredible in person if you haven't seen it. And college sports is a mess, but it is what it is. All right, we will see. Next week, I will not be here. I will be out with my daughter in St. Louis at a concert. Dave and Keegan will be here to steward the show on Wednesday of next week. That's the BCJ podcast presented by the Holy Grail right here on BearcatJournal.com.